educated at the best schools. I've had extraordinary opportunities as one of the elite of the United States of America, which is the strongest country in the history of the world, that now dominates the planet as an imperium. I was taught from day one to the time I finished my schooling that if I used my rational mind, I could understand the world and I could conquer the world. And I've come to the conclusion that that definition of power is the toxicity that is now destroying the earth. So if you just think about that and take it to the next level of metaphysics, then you have a situation where, and the example that I use is the tsunami that happened in Sri Lanka in 2000. You had a tsunami that came out of the ocean and thousands of people were killed. Many Western business people and their family who had come to Sri Lanka for Christmas. And the tsunami wiped them all away. Who survived? The people that survived were the indigenous people in Sri Lanka who dreamed that a tsunami was coming. And there's a story of one of the tribes that knew it was coming several days before it came and started to develop rituals and lined the beach with pebbles and rocks to welcome the brother wave that was coming. And then they retreated to higher ground. The animals knew the tsunami was coming, and there are stories of elephants tied by their legs with chains to posts that ripped them up to get away, and there's even stories of some of the animals protecting the children. So the point here is that we in our Western linear scientific mind were sitting on that beach when our destruction was coming right at us and we didn't see it because we were sipping our margaritas. The indigenous people, the animals, had a different way of knowing. And because they had a different way of knowing that was not rational, but intuitive, and not a function of the intellect, but a function of a resonance with the natural system itself, they knew what to do, and because they survived because their knowing was at a deeper place within Gaia, within Mother Nature. Therefore, they were empowered to know what they needed to do. We should be living sustainably. We should be embracing the other. There is no other. There is no race on this planet that is chosen by some God as somehow special. That is a delusion. And until and unless we understand the delusion of the very traditions that have produced not only us, but the nuclear weapons and the absolutely rapacious way that we're treating Mother Earth, we will not, I believe, survive as a civilization for what is now coming. Therefore, the reason why I set up Wisdom University, the reason why I set up Ubiquity University, because I founded both institutions, was to some degree as an extension of what I did in Russia, is I went to the opposite. So part of what we've been studying at the university is what we call Earth Wisdom and the Primordial Mind. We may be the only institution anywhere in the world that's doing it. Yes. And what we're saying, I'm a Platonist. I never could accept Judeo-Christianity and the Abrahamic traditions for the reasons I stated. When I got to the Greeks, I felt for the first time in my life that I was home. I could understand the Greeks. I could understand the deeply, I would say, existential bedrock of the Greeks, because they didn't appeal to a God outside themselves. They appealed, as Socrates taught us, that our chief task is to examine our lives. Remember his great line that the unexamined life is not worth living. I can do that. And yet I've come to understand that we have to learn what we call the mother tongue. I've learned Chinese, English, Greek, Hebrew, Russian, French, and German. And going into the future, I have to leave that behind and learn the language of the flowers and the trees and the rocks and the streams. And so one of our courses, for example, we go to a place called Enchanted Rock in Texas. And the assignment for our students is we're going to go to Enchanted Rock, and that is one of the largest rock formations in the earth. It's 100 tons of granite. And all that sticks up above the earth's crust is a little like the tip of the iceberg, and it goes down mostly just underneath the surface of the earth, and it's been a sacred site for the Indian tribes for over 10,000 years. And our assignment to our students is try on day one to commune with this rock, because it is as intelligent as you are. It's using a different frequency to communicate. And then, can you move from communion to actual communication? Can you learn rock speak, flower speak, tree speak, dolphin speak with the same facility that you learn Greek or French or German? It's the mother tongue that human beings now have to learn, because that's where we have to source our wisdom, our knowledge, and I would say our power. And if we can, that's the Copernican revolution of our time. What happened during the Renaissance? The Renaissance, as far as the historians have been able to track, started about October of 1402, when two Florentine chancellors, a man by the name of Bruno and a man by the name of Savatati, made a decision that they were going to change the educational system in Florence by shifting away from the medieval notion of the Bible and the church to a new notion based in the Greco-Roman civilization around the primacy of human reason and what they called man the measure. We have been living in that Renaissance Enlightenment worldview of the primacy of human reason and the scientific method. That now has become as toxic and as debilitating to our civilization as the medieval biblical tradition had become during the medieval period. Our generation now needs to move beyond the primacy of human reason and the dualism of our monotheistic traditions just as definitively as the Renaissance moved beyond that, and we have to now source ourselves in Gaia, and we need to learn the mother tongue. And if there's nothing else that you take from me today, that's the image that I have come to in my life, and around which I founded Wisdom University and now Ubiquity University, and decided to move into creating the kind of educational institution that would take everything that I had learned about social change and what I wanted to, how I would have loved to have been educated, into a real possibility. So ever since then, I've been not confronting the old system, but trying to create new possibilities. And I have to tell you, I'm happier. I feel more alive. I know that the world situation is actually getting worse and worse. And I think that there is some evidence that we've actually passed the point of no return. But I believe that like the dandelion coming up through concrete, the spirit that guides the affairs of humankind, the intelligence that is Mother Earth, somehow, I believe, knows what's happening and can take the smallest little act and use it for a noble purpose. Because context shapes content, that means that if your context is a deepening crisis, like ours is, opportunities are always commensurate with the crisis. If you don't recognize the suffering for what it is, if you don't recognize the crisis for what it is, you don't recognize the opportunities for what they are. There's a direct relationship between opportunities and awareness of crisis. And this is not only me thinking it's true, it's actually a function of physics. You know the work of Prigogine.
No.
Oh,
Maybe you
Prigogine.
can say some words for.
Yeah, let me tell you about Prigogine, because it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Prigogine was part of he got a Nobel Prize for chemistry, because he was among many other things, he studied chaos theory. And he studies what happens in unstable systems. And what he discovered about unstable systems is that underneath the chaos is a deeper order. Right?
Yeah.
So, what he then articulated at a level of physics is that when the new order emerges, and the new coherence begins to emerge in the chaos, it develops its coherence directly proportional to its capacity to either absorb or deflect the energy of the chaotic system itself. In other words, if you seek to develop a new world, you can never do it without interacting with the energy of the world that is passing. And that means...
It's like killing the dragon in the mystical stories, no?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So he says we must endeavor to create islands of coherence in the sea of chaos, knowing that the integrity of our coherence, as we create this island of coherence, is directly proportional to our capacity to absorb the energy of the chaos itself.
How about now? How about let's talk about the present time? Maybe.
Oh, I can tell you.
Yeah, please.
Let's take it for right now. So, right now there are three parts of our chaos. One is the escalating turbulence caused by climate change. We are now in a world characterized by escalating extreme weather events. And whether it's in Russia with the drying up of the tundra and massive amounts of methane coming up, or the tornadoes and hurricanes, the typhoons, everywhere around the world, societies under assault because of escalating climate change and extreme weather events. That's number one. Number two, our governing elites are building national security states. Putin is doing it in Russia. Obama is doing it in the United States. The European Union is doing it in Europe. The governments of the world are building national security states within the context of which they can access any information they want from you or me at any time. We are the first generation that has no privacy.
Yeah.
Okay? And that allows the governing elites to have national security state structures that are unprecedented in the history of the world. That's number two.
Yes.
Number three is the internet and the power of the computer, and the fact that you and I, as ordinary people, now have access to more information than anybody in the history of the world. And then number four, technology is bursting onto the scene that can solve all our problems. So we have two negative megatrends, escalating climate change and the building of national security states, and two positive megatrends. We have the internet technology where people can interact all over the world, and we have burgeoning technologies that could solve the problem. The extraordinary paradox of our situation right now is that we're not in this crisis because we've got no solutions. We're in the crisis because we're not implementing the solutions that are already here. I believe we're in the most crisis-ridden generation in history. And we're in the most potentiated generation in history, which means that the choices you make as an individual, the choices I make as an individual, it's all about the butterfly effect. We're in one singular system now, and that means one movement, no matter how small, if it's the right movement, and it resonates with the time, with the kairos, as the Greeks would put it. That is what is going to determine history. Not how much power you have, not what your infrastructure represents, not how much fossil fuel you're putting into your economy. It's who you are. It's what you're seeking to do to transact change in history at this moment. I tell all my students, pay attention to the news. And I would say to your audience, pay attention to the news. Why? We are no longer in normal times. When we're in normal times, you can live your little personal life and basically expect that the government is going to take care of the problems. But if you've got climate change coming, if you've got a national security state coming, if you've got all kinds of technological change that's coming, that means that your normal personal life is going to have external events suddenly and without warning impinge on your sense of normalcy. So I urge everybody to pay attention to the news.
But maybe you're a rich person.
I'm a poor man. I'm a poor man. I've been like Gandhi all my life. I make things happen in the world as if I was a rich man. I raise it from other people. I'm Robin Hood. I loved Robin Hood when I was a little boy. And I thought, if he could do it, if he could steal from the rich and give to the poor, I can do it. All my life, I've taken from the rich and I've distributed to the poor. My model for my life is Gandhi. So we have a very simple, we rent here, we don't own this house. We have what we need, but the furniture is a little shabby, and I believe that enough is enough, and that's all you need in this life. You can't take it with you.
Arnold is asking if you're happy. If you're happy.
I feel happier and more abundant today than I've ever felt in my life. I feel ready. I feel energetic. I feel more capacious than I've ever felt. Ubiquity University is what I've prepared all my life to bring into being.
I see. That's like.
And we're designing the education of the future, and we're I think being very strategic about it, and I think it's going to be very successful. And so I'm having as much fun as I did during the 60s, that's for sure.
Do you concentrate on not only on doing, not only on the things that you're doing, right? You also probably practice on your state, inner state. How do you keep this?
Well, I think we need to, all of us need to contemplate that we're spiritual beings having a human experience, not, as Teilhard de Chardin said, human beings having a spiritual experience. Our whole life is a spiritual exercise. Our whole life is an exercise of consciousness. So from a very early age, I've meditated. The whole universe, as Plotinus said, breathes together. The ancient understanding, East and West, was that the cosmos was the out breath of God.
That's what you
And then
experience
the
in
in
meditation.
breath. And so when we meditate, we're basically doing what God's doing. We breathe out and we breathe in. So just spending time every day sitting in a meditative posture and just breathing. Our bodies are the temple of the Holy Ghost. We need to treat our bodies as temples. And we should feed our bodies correct food. We shouldn't be eating junk food. We shouldn't be defiling our bodies with tobacco and too much alcohol, things that we know are toxic to our body systems. That's like a blasphemy against our own selves, because when our bodies die, we're gone. When our bodies are sick, we feel miserable. So we want to keep our bodies as healthy as we possibly can, even though we know we're going to die.
Yeah.
And we also need to know that we're not physical beings only. We have spiritual, we have consciousness. And consciousness is what's eternal, not matter. Matter is an emanation of consciousness. It's a frequency of consciousness. So the awareness of me as me is my most essential identity, that point of awareness. And I can exercise that awareness so that that awareness becomes like a finely honed jewel, a sculpted jewel. And so that we're not governed by our appetites. We're not governed by our passions. We can be passionate. We can have great appetite. But in the end, we have a fulcrum of choice. We have a fulcrum of awareness. We have a fulcrum of consciousness that determines who we are. And I would say that after 40 years of meditating, if I had one thing that I would tell any young person, that if they could do nothing else and they could do one thing every day, sit quietly with your back straight and breathe. Because when you breathe, you're doing at a micro level what the cosmos is doing at a macro level. And the alignment, the resonance, the harmony that comes when you breathe as the universe is breathing